Started. Great. Namaste and welcome everyone for our webinar for International Yoga Day. The theme this year is human unity, and there's so many layers to yoga, and at HUA we've been doing a lot, not with just these three faculty who are featuring today, but on so many fronts, because we know yoga is so deep, it's so important, there's so many layers to it. And actually, back in 2014, the United Nations General Assembly declared June 21st as International Yoga Day, International Day of Yoga. Last year, we had a panel discussion on that year's theme. This year, we've brought together Shriramji, Raghuji, and Ashwiniji to discuss this year's theme, human unity. So this is kind of our second annual International Yoga Day webinar. I'm not going to get into too much of an introduction to everyone. It'll take up a little bit of time, but we're going to get into how to apply yoga to our daily lives, the workplace, and our inner lives. And so each of our faculty is going to discuss that from their perspective. And so maybe as I'm not sure what order we want to go in, but I'll introduce you specifically, ask that question, and then we'll dig into it. And everyone joining around the world, if you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you're zooming in from. Claudia from Peru, glad to have you on. Shantaji from Montreal, wonderful to see the diversity of folks from around the world joining us. International Hindu Yoga Day, no, they don't put the word Hindu into it. Maybe that'll be a part of the discussion that we have today. So maybe we'll start with our daily lives, right? We'll start with how do we incorporate yoga into our daily lives? And speaking on that is going to be Shri Ashwini Surpur, who is part of Yoga Bharati. She's the executive director. She worked at Oracle for 15 years. She's in San Jose, as she mentioned, and she's been teaching at HUA for years now. So she's just an incredible person. Glad to have her on. Breadth of experience and wonderful person to have to launch us on how to incorporate yoga into our daily lives. So we'll start with Ashwini-ji, and then we'll go through the rest of our panelists, maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we'll take some questions. And hopefully you will all interact with each other as well. Happy to have that level of engagement. So Ashwini-ji, why don't you start us off?
Namaste. Thank you. Sorry, I was speaking on the mute. Very good question. How do we implement yoga in our daily life? First of all, we need to know what is yoga and what is that you are going to implement in daily life. Yoga, as Swami Vivekananda has categorized, is of 4 categories. The Raja Yoga, the discipline on the mat or on the seat of meditation. Karma Yoga, the 24/7 karma that we do, the actions that we take. Jnana Yoga, the contemplation. And Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of emotions, surrender, positive emotions, that is, of surrender, of acceptance, of love, and of devotion. So to implement yoga in daily life, you need to take all these 4 into consideration. Otherwise, you'll be only sitting on the mat for maybe maximum of, you'll be practicing yoga on the mat for about an hour or maximum of 2 hours. And then you will say, I'm not in yoga. But yoga is a state of mind. Yoga is an empowerment, and yoga also is a process. So it's all 3 of them. So when you take up yoga, you consider all these, and ultimate goal is, of course, to bring happiness, to bring wisdom, to not be shaken by any adversity that we get in life. Life is going to throw lemons at us. How are we going to add honey to it and make it a lemonade and enjoy it? That's the part of. Otherwise, imagine just eating honey for days and days and days. You're not going to like it. You do want some lemon in it. So difficulties, adversities, all these situations actually should be challenges that we want to conquer, you want to overcome, and you want to feel that victory within. And that's what yoga allows you to do. And how to incorporate into daily life? Number 1, without discipline, nothing else can happen. You can talk all day until cows come home, but If you don't have the mental discipline and the physical discipline, and if your body is weak and if your mind is weak, you can only talk, but it doesn't help. So that is the number one thing. So you need that discipline, however short that discipline is, but that has to be consistent. So that is number one. Number two, you want a contemplative mind. When a fight happens in the house or some kind of argument happens in the house, in the office, in wherever it is, you want to have that mind where it says, what exactly happened? Where is my contribution to this thing that fell out, this fallout, right? And how do I correct that? Instead of worrying about the other, let me worry about myself and how to fix that, and yet move on, not be brooding and self-judging ourselves. So the third aspect, that is the contemplation aspect. And the third aspect is the karma. In every action, am I do I have this burden of action on me, or is my hand working, my mind is working, but I am relaxed? So this relaxed ability to work without getting caught up in the work. Kuruvan neveha karmani jijivishet shatam samaha. So you keep doing the work for 100 years and you live for 100 years working, is what Ishavasyopanishad says. And how is that possible? When nakarma lipyate naraha, when the work doesn't touch me. There is work happening through me, but work doesn't touch me. It doesn't. That is the karma yoga aspect of it. I can go on and on, but I don't want to take everybody's time here. And the last one will be bhakti, which is the sense of devotion to anything that I take up. Take up any idea, any work, including even cleaning dishes. You are there, fully present, and doing that, enjoying that. So that devotion is what bhakti is. It's not simply about rituals. Are important. We talked about discipline, yeah, as a Raj Yoga, so or even part of Karma Yoga, but the ability to do that with complete love, attention, being present, and having that devotion to the task without worrying about the results, and with that non-attachment and accepting whatever comes through that. Maybe I've cleaned all the dishes and my spouse found that there's something wrong with one of the dishes, and he was in, or she was in bad mood, and somehow ended up yelling. And we get, okay, I spent an hour doing all this and I get this for small little thing here. This is natural for all of us to feel, but that bhakti will make it easier for us. So with these four streams of yoga, you can include bhakti in you can include yoga in your life. Thank you.
And how to use it in your daily lives. Those 4 points are great. Next, we're going to jump into yoga in the workplace. I think that kind of dovetails here, and we're going to have Dr. Sriram Sarvatam discuss that, who has been an ardent practitioner of yoga since childhood. He's done hundreds of yoga workshops and retreats. He does specific research, or has done a course on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, and Sriramji has just been active in so many different places, in workplace, in conferences, and at Hindu University of America. So with that, just Sriramji, why don't you take it from there?
Namaste. So when we look at the word yoga, my teacher always used to emphasize the two dimensions, the two facets of yoga. So one is the experience of yoga, where we anchor ourselves in that place of inner peace. And the second dimension to yoga is the expression of yoga. In other words, the dynamic way in which we express the joy that we have cultivated within or found within, and how to express that and share that harmony, share that joy with the world. So I thought I will mention 3 sadhanas around karma yoga that we can use in practice in our workplace. And I'll also give a couple of more wisdom principles from the Bhagavad Gita and the Patanjali Yoga Sutras that will be helpful in the workplace, especially because workplace is not just a place of work. It is also a place where politics happens, where there is interpersonal or professional rivalries perhaps. So all these also come into play. So we find that most of the wakeful time we spend in office or we spend at work. So I think it is a good idea to examine how we can be happy in the workplace and how we can contribute joy to others' life we touch. So one of the principles in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani. Be established in yoga first and then do your actions. Do not reverse the order. In other words, if you try to do actions from a disturbed place of mind, then perhaps we don't take the right decisions. We may not be efficient in our work. So be in yoga first and then do your actions. And of course, the word yoga itself has several meanings. And in the same shlokam, Lord Krishna, he defines what yoga, samatvam yoga uchyate. So yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Find that place of equilibrium within, and from that place of centeredness, anchoring ourselves to that center, do your actions. And do not reverse the order. Do not try to hanker for actions without centering ourselves first. So my teacher used to describe this as iPod, the acronym iPod, which stands for inner peace, outwardly dynamic. Finding the inner peace first, and outwardly we are dynamically active. Sometimes we find ourselves in the opposite mode, which we sometimes call analysis paralysis, right? So inwards, there is no equilibrium, there is chaos, and outwardly we are paralyzed. We don't know whether to do this or whether to do that. Should I take this decision or not? So when we anchor ourselves to a place of equilibrium, sometimes it may appear as if it's a passive thing. Oh, if somebody meditates a lot, will they be active or will they be passive throughout the day? But here is the key. Krishna assures that when we find that place of equilibrium, we will be dynamically active. And to give an analogy, suppose we consider a washing machine. So if the washing machine has to spin very fast, we need the center of gravity to be anchored stably to a single place. Therefore, when we anchor the center. So yogastha kuru karmani. So that is one principle that we see in the Bhagavad Gita around karma yoga. The second principle is the same word yoga is defined as excellence in action or skill in action. Yoga karmasu kaushalam, kushalatvam, which is skill or excellence. And the word kushala itself is very interesting. It comes from kusha grass. So great yogis, when they prepare the seat for meditation, they use kusha grass, and top of it, they place cloth and all that. So kusha grass is like cushion. In fact, the English word cushion comes from the same root, kusha grass. And this kusha grass is very interesting. Although it's soft and nice and all that, its edges are very sharp. So when we pluck the kusha grass, we have to be very, very careful so that we don't cut ourselves, we don't injure ourselves. So we have to be very mindfully pluck the kusha grass. So kushalatvam, karmasu kaushalam, means when we offer our actions, be mindful. Do not do the actions mechanically, where the mind is elsewhere and the body is mechanically doing something. Engage the mind, in fact, engage the self. Allow all aspects of our existence to be in tune with the action. Karmasu kaushalam, be engaged with the action. And when we do the action with engagement, when somebody does an action, giving their heart into it, as they say, giving their soul into the action, giving their heart into the action, then excellence can be expressed. Excellence is expressed. So the practice of excellence in action, how can I do this and make the action excellent? How can I do the best job? Is a sadhana by itself. So this is the second aspect that I wanted to share. And there's a third aspect, which Ashwini ji also mentioned. When we do a work, when we do a task, not just do it because of obligation, I have to do it, it is my duty, grudgingly doing it, but doing it out of a sense of joy. I am doing this to serve somebody. I am doing this because this is my way of worshipping, or this is my way of expressing joy. My teacher coined a new word, Swami Bodhanandaji. He coined a new word. He calls it workship. Work as worship, workship. And this elevates the quality of our work. It is not just a mechanical routine task. We elevate even a mundane task to a spiritual task, a puja. In fact, when we examine the word puja, the definition of puja itself is very interesting. Purnat jayate iti puja. When we offer something, when we express our actions with a heart full of gratitude, heart full of joy, purnam. So that becomes a puja. So whatever we are doing, it becomes a puja. So we can use our workplace as a way to express our sadhana. In other words, how can I excel in what I do? How can I regard work as worship? How can I enliven all these sadhanas at workplace? So that is three practices around karma and karma yoga. Let me also mention one more very, very interesting shloka that Krishna gives to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita that talks about leadership. Because in the workplace, we are not just in a silo, we are not just a single person working in a task, we work as a team. And how can we inspire each other? The best way to inspire, and especially this comes in handy for a leader, leadership. How do we inspire people towards the vision that we have so that all of us are supremely active working towards the same vision? He says, Yadyad acharati sreshtaha tattadeve tarojanaha sayat pramanam kurute lokaha tad anuvartate. That means the best way to inspire others is to be a personal example. Acharati sreshtaha, walk the talk. When we walk the talk, then we inspire people around us. Sayat pramanam kurute. Pramana means we offer our actions as a way that they can see. We offer our actions, the excellence that we bring. We are not just doing it in isolation, but when others see it, they are inspired and they give their best as well. In fact, I remember when I first joined the workforce about 15 years back, I was blessed to have a very, very inspiring manager. And what he used to do was, during the weekly meetings, rather than asking everyone, what did you accomplish? What did you accomplish in a round robin way? What he used to do was, he began the meetings by saying, okay, let me share with you what I did. And he used to give a long list of tasks that he got accomplished. And when we heard that, we were inspired to give our best as well. So start from the center, give excellence at work, and then we inspire others as well. And finally, I'd like to mention when we interact with people, especially at workplace, things can that could be resistance when people interact with each other, or there could be politics and so forth. So what is the best way in which we can handle people? And for that, Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, he gives a very beautiful wisdom around that. He says, Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshana Sukha Dukkha Punya Punya Vishayanam Bhavanatas Chitta Prasadanam. You can classify people into four types: people who are happy, people who are sad, people who are doing excellent work, and people who are not doing excellent work. Maybe they're making some mistakes or making some errors and so forth. So, how do you interact with them the best? So, for people who are happy, Patanjali gives the teaching, be friendly with them, Maitri. When you are friends with them, we also share the joy, we also become happy, and we give our best. When we find somebody is sad, miserable, then not just stopping with friendship, because we also become sad and we are not solving the problem. Therefore, offer karuna, be compassionate to them, extend a helping hand to them. How can I help you? How can I serve you? And the third, when we are seeing someone who is doing excellent work, when they're excelling something, rather than getting jealous about them or trying to nitpick and find faults with them, be happy for them, mudita, be happy for them, as if We did that excellent work. Share the joy as if we are part of the same team. We are of the same team. So partake in the joy, mudita. And then upeksha, we offer to those who are doing mistakes or errors. Upeksha means not trying to see the fault again and again, not to magnify that fault and to repeatedly keep pointing them out to the mistake. Oh, you did this mistake, you did this mistake, and pointing them out. So, not to dwell on the mistakes they made, but shine the spotlight of awareness on the things that they are doing well. So, these are some of the amazing wisdom that we find in the yoga texts that we can directly apply in a workplace. Thank you, and over to you, Ankurji.
Of yoga in the workplace from a couple different angles. Thank you so much for that, Shriramji. And our last panelist is going to go deep. How do we apply yoga into the inner selves, into ourselves, in our minds, in that individualized way? So it's Sri Raghu Ananta Narayanan, and he's got a postgraduate degree in biomedical engineering from IIT Chennai, but he's a trained yoga expert in the lineage of Sri Tirumalai Krishnamacharya. And Raghuji has done so much stuff, including co-founded the Sumedhas Academy for Human Context, the Barefoot Academy for Governance, and Flame Tao Nowhere. That's and he serves on the board of several companies. He's been teaching yoga of the Mahabharata at HUA and Antaranga Yoga. And with that, let's go inwards with Raghuji and how to apply yoga to ourselves.
Thanks, Ankur. You always have a nice way of introducing us. Huh? Yeah. One of the things that struck me was, that yoga is such a huge thing. There's so many slices we can take of it. One of the things that I thought might be useful for us to discuss is what are the context of the world in which we need yoga and why yoga becomes extremely important in today's context. Yeah, the interesting thing that's happened this year is in March, two very huge events happened. One was the World Economic Forum woke up to the fact that we're in polycrisis. Yeah, Jay Forrester and group from the 70s have been talking about systemic effects and what is happening to the earth and things like that. But suddenly they've woken up and they've called this the polycrisis. And there's an 85 page report which doesn't mention the mind that creates this crisis even once. And then very soon after that, you had ChatGPT come out. And one of the founders of this whole AI stuff comes up and says, this is an idiot savant. Right? And so we're faced with a very serious kind of threshold in human affairs right now. And everybody is talking about what this might mean. Now, one of the things that we can look at and understand when we study yoga is that human beings have two possibilities as extremes. It's called bhogam and apavargam in the Yoga Sutra. So on the one hand, you can become an expression of the divine, experience ananda. And the way to do that at a very grounded level is you behave like a cell. Yeah, and the behavior of a cell is contained in the word dharma, which means everything I do enlivens me, enlivens the context I'm in, and enlivens the world I'm living in. Every cell knows how to do this. Yeah. On the other hand, you have a virus. The virus asks only one question. Yeah. The virus asks, what's in it for me? And that is the bhoga question. The bhoga question is you enter the world and you say, what's in it for me? What can I grab? and what will give me immediate satisfaction, right? And, there's a continuity, but let's just look at these two ends. It's very obvious that when you use science and technology and every advancement that human beings have made so far from a viral mind, you're going to create the kind of crisis that we are facing today. That's the only prognosis of it. But there are many, many examples where small groups of people at least have applied themselves like cells would. So there's a dharmic way of dealing with the world, which means that you use your resources with respect, you treat each other with respect, and then the world you build can be a very, very meaningful, very beautiful world for everybody, right? And I think it's very important to find out how every one of us can follow the path which is more cell-like in our behavior and not viral. Yeah, so every idea that Ashwini ji gave or Shriram ji gave are very critical to this process. Yeah, I'll just add a few things to what they have said. See, one of the problems that has happened with the word yoga is it has got caught with Bahiranga Yoga, which is just asana and pranayama, and then they've equated the word yoga to this. But that's just about 12 or 14 of the Yoga Sutras. Out of the 195, that's about less than 10%, right? The rest of it has to do, a major chunk of it has to do with how do you transform the mind, which behaves like a virus, right? Which is called a vyuthita chitta or a muda chitta, to a mind that is capable of dharmic action, ekagrata, and so on. Now, once you apply a mind which is capable of ekagrata into science or into any inquiry, it's going to come up with very, very insightful things. But since it has been through the process of deep transformation, it also goes through deep ethical transformation. So it becomes very critical that one develops this kind of an attitude, which is a monk-like attitude towards using knowledge, using science. And that is what yoga can do for us. Yeah. And, one very simple way of doing this, one of the sutras that's very critical is what Shriramji talked about. A key idea that is given in the Yoga Sutras is that if I don't understand how to look at myself and how to look at the world, I'm going to color myself, and everything I do is through the coloration of the mind. So it says vritti sarupyam itaratra. So I can either be with a mind that is clear and seeing lucidly or colored. Right now, I'm starting with a colored mind. So how do I bootstrap myself is a critical question. So for that, and if we have to get away from this, kind of corruption of yoga as yoga is equal to asana and pranayama, we have to start with yama as the critical starting point. Now, what would it mean when I say start with yama as a critical starting point? Yama gives us 5 simple but very effective lenses through which we watch our action. Starts with the word ahimsa. Yeah. Now, ahimsa is a word that's been applied by Gandhiji, it's been applied by Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. Many people have used this word effectively. And the other 4 words actually follow if you really understand ahimsa. Now, if I use this word ahimsa as a lens and as a reflector unto myself, it's a very simple thing to start with yama as the first practice of yoga. Because I know when I'm bringing in an attitude of violence, when I'm interacting with people, when am I allowing violence to happen to me? I can sense this. right? Now, once I sense this, what Antaranga Yoga, the inner reflective yoga, asks you to do is to start from this and go back and ask yourself, where am I coming from and what am I doing inside myself that allows this interface to happen? Yeah, and you can use it for all the other yamas. And the next yama is satya, right? And if people apply these two principles, ahimsa and satya, to all the stuff that goes around in social media, stuff that everybody is warning us about, artificial intelligence, and so on. Just this morning, I was reading an article that says how much the artificial intelligence information that comes through to you is going to be biased, and how it is going to impact the mind because it's going to fill you with assumptions and conclusions about the world subliminally, which you don't even understand, which is actually biased and lies. Yeah, so it becomes extremely important to start applying yama as the first principle of yoga. Yeah, and all the other practices can then be seen as things that aid this. So if I don't have a body that is free of toxins, I'm not going to be able to watch my mind carefully. I need to do asana for that. I need to eat good food. I need to do pranayama. I need to keep my relationships in a way that don't keep stoking ahimsa in me, and so on. So my way of looking at yoga would be start from taking yama and niyama very seriously, because if you drop that, you're not doing yoga. Because the basis of yoga is to build a dharmic world. The basis of yoga is not just personal excellence. The basis of yoga is not to go away and say, I'm very calm and I'm very cool. The basis of yoga is to build a dharmic world. Otherwise, there's no need for Arjuna to have picked up that fight. Because the question that Arjuna asks when he gets into the battle is, how do I convert a Kurukshetra, which is acrimony and fight for personal aggrandizement, into a Dharmakshetra? And that question is becoming more and more and more critical every day, because we are at the edge of the crisis. And I think yoga is extremely central for not just integrity within, but unity in the world. Yeah, so these are some of the thoughts that came to me. I thought I would share them.
Bringing it together. Wow, I'm so glad to have you three engage in this conversation. I was expecting something wonderful, and this really was. But now let me give you a chance maybe to interact across. If one of you have a question or a comment or something that you want to follow up with each other, I think that would be great. And if any of our audience members have a question, please put in the Q&A box. We had a little kind of side conversation on the legitimacy of yoga authorization. Where do we get credit or credibility or authorization? How does that come about? And I think just when people listen to folks like you three, especially, you can tell there's a depth and an understanding regardless of what accreditation you have. And I don't know if you want to include that in maybe the conversation. I just open it up to you three. Raghuji, amazing way to bring that together. Ashwiniji, thank you for starting us off on a strong foot. And Sriramji, always, that making it apply. Just beautiful how you three fit together. Let me open it up to you three first, and our guests and attendees can add some questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just wanted to say how blessed I feel being with Sri Ramji and Raghuji here, and the aspect about being a cell versus being a virus or a cancer cell for that matter was a beautiful analogy, and I personally learned a lot from this panel myself. So it's basically we are here to, the whole idea now with all this AI and everything happening is the question has to come back to us as to why we are here. What is the purpose of life? So this was the question. We are actually conducting youth teacher training as of now, and this was the question I asked youth yesterday. In a session on pranayama, we go into prana and what is prana, and we take them into a whole existence at all these 5 layers of panchakoshas: the physical, the pranic, the mental, intellect, and the final level of ananda. And I asked them a question: have you ever, any of you, like there were some 10 of them, have you contemplated on life and death? They're all like 13 and over. Most of them are on average 15, 16. So have you contemplated on life and death? What is this? And what is your purpose in life? Has this thought ever come into your mind? Silence. Only one. After I pretty much called everybody's name because I didn't want them to be silent. I said, you can either say yes or no, or you are busy, or whatever you have. Only one said, I have contemplated, and I didn't know, I didn't get the answer, so I became quiet. And one other person said, I don't have time for it. And another person said, maybe I'm still young enough, nothing will happen to me right now, so I don't have to think about it. So why am I saying this? As a young person, when I grew up in India, in a town, not in the city, the talk around was about spirituality, about life, about death, about I contemplated as a child, when something happens, like, why did it happen? When somebody dies, is that a normal thing? Is this something that happens to me too, and my father too, my mother too? These were some of the questions that naturally come up when we are quiet, when we are we used to sit down watching stars at night. All of that has gone, and the world is moving so fast in God knows which direction that we don't have time to sit down and contemplate on life as a whole. With all the chat GPT, with all the AI tools, with all the comforts of AC and this and that in the house, and we didn't have to today we don't have to worry about the business of life. In India back then, without us working, all of us working in the house, we wouldn't have food to eat, because we have to go get the flour made, and if the maid doesn't come, we all have to wash dishes. All that is gone, and all that has been there with us, and we still contemplated on life like this. And today's youth don't do that. So my question to my fellow panelists is has this been your experience too? And what are we supposed to do to basically make everybody think about life as a whole, the purpose of life as a whole, as opposed to just running at God knows where and at what speed? I'm talking youth here. And if this is the youth today, how are they going to really solve this poly crisis that Raghuji is talking about? I mean, the world is talking about, which Raghuji mentioned. That is my question as well as conversation.
I have 2 responses, Ashwiniji. Yeah, one is that, when you come to yoga, the first sutra, the first word is atha yoga anushasana. Now, the word atha was explained by Krishnamacharya as saying, you're asking the person who has been a brahmachari for 12 years, are you really ready for yoga? And that is a question that's asked to the student who's been through asana, pranayama, all of these things for 12 years. Yeah. So let's be a little kind to these young chaps here who come to practice yoga. Let them take their time. Then you ask them, no, atha yoga anushasana. That is one. Yeah. The second response I have is I have a lot of young people coming and talking to me about extremely serious things. And I get this feeling that it was always like this, no? There's always been a bell curve, right? Some people who are asuric, who use all their capabilities to figure out how to wage the next war. And there is the whole other end of the spectrum of people who are figuring out how to create love and peace in this world at the other end. I think this is a steady state curve. Right? Except that I don't think today we can afford to wait for this curve to play itself out. That's the crisis. Yeah, and the number of young people who are asking questions today, just the other day, there was this thing of a whole group of youngsters, 16 and less, taking the streets saying, teach our parents to use the cell phone less. Yeah, so I have great faith that young people will ask these questions. And I'm hoping many of us who are these oldies are the kind of role models that Sriramji is talking about. Are we Shreyas? Are we really good role models for them to look at and say, you know what, this guy tried hard. Maybe, you know, in spite of him, the Ukraine war happened, and not because of him, the Ukraine war happened, or because of him, we're getting into this environmental crisis. I think that's the best we can do and be really hopeful.
So I got so much out of this discussion. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. We're talking about cell phones, and I totally agree with Raghuji. It has made a big effect on the chitta. It has made the chitta a vyukta chitta, and we need to transform that into a samahita chitta, a more centered, balanced state of mind. My teacher used to call these gadgets, the cell phones, the gizmos that keep beeping every 2.5 seconds. So he used to call them WMDs, weapons of mass distractions. And when the mind keeps getting interrupted, because meditation in Patanjali Yoga Sutra is defined as an uninterrupted flow of awareness. Pratyaya ekatanata, Patanjali says. So if the flow of pratyaya, prashantavahita, that is a flow of peace, that is how meditation is described. And when it is constantly being interrupted, then perhaps it allows the mind to be in a state of turbulence. And we are unable to make right decisions. We are unable to think clearly. So yes, that itself is a sadhana. Switching the phone off is a sadhana. Perhaps we can include it as part of our yoga practice. The second thing that one of the takeaways that I think should be highlighted is the yamas and niyamas that so beautifully Raghuji mentioned. My teacher used to call them the forgotten limbs of yoga. People straight away jump into the asanas, but it is very important to keep in mind the yamas and niyamas. And he used to say that when we experience pain, we are no longer doing yoga, we are doing a practice called torture. And he always used to give a mantra. The mantra is no pain, all gain. No pain, all gain. That is the mantra in yoga. That is the expression of ahimsa. No pain to oneself, no pain to others as well. Ahimsa, the first foundation of the Ashtanga Yoga. And the last thing that I would like to mention, so beautifully Raghuji said, is not just stop at personal excellence, but universal excellence. How can we contribute to the well-being of the world? Loka Sangraham. And when we bring all this, for example, at the workplace, when we bring the values, the ethics, the non-violence, the integrity, living a life of integrity and so forth in the workplace, and also not just bringing how I can do best, how the team can do best. So all these are ways that we can practicalize in our daily life.
I don't know if we can take those, and then if you have other thoughts, we can go across the panelists again. Sumitraji is asking, and I think a lot of people feel this, right? How do you travel in a yogic path, living in a grahasta, when people around are chasing after money? They don't understand what you seek. And then she follows up with, how do you solve the conflict that comes with living in ideal life versus reality? So let me open that up to our panelists, and who wants to go first, and then we'll just take give everyone a chance to respond.
This is a very old question, nah? This illaram versus turavaram, or whatever it's called in Tamil. In Sanskritam, it would be what the shamana versus the grihastha, whatever. This has never been a question in yoga, because the Bhagavad Gita is taught in the battlefield precisely because yoga doesn't happen somewhere all alone. Yeah, it happens every day. So what you do on the mat or the pranayama and all that is only a preparation to be able to meet the day with a certain quality. That's exactly what Ashwiniji and Shiranji are talking about. That is yogam. Yogam is the meeting point. Yeah, so we have three very critical words to understand. Na? Ati yogam, hina yogam, and viyogam. Ati yogam is when I aggress beyond my boundary. I'm doing ahimsa to myself and to others. Yeah, hina yogam is when I shrink away. Yeah, viyogam is pretending that I'm in heaven when crap is happening all over. Yogam is to keep away all of these and look inside and say, what is pulling me towards these three? And engage with the world at the level, at the intensity that it's calling for. That is yoga. Unfortunately, doing some asana is called yoga. That's where the problem starts. Right? And if you go into the Mahabharata, my most favorite story is not the Bhagavad Gita. It is Vyadha Gita. Yeah, about the Shamana, the Kaushika, who's pretending to be this yogi, who meets the butcher in Mathura, and the conversation that happens there. That, to me, is the essence of the Mahabharata. That's the essence of yoga. How do I meet life? Is the question. Yeah. So if we look at yoga from this perspective, then the question disappears. Then the grihastha is the most beautiful space in which to test my ability to spontaneously act from yama, ahimsa, satya. And Krishnamacharya was very clear. He would say that the test of a true yogi is how spontaneously he responds from ahimsa and satya in every situation, especially difficult situations. What's the most difficult situation? What Ashwiniji started by describing. I just finished cleaning my utensils and came, and just before I could come here, Sashi asked me, have you cleaned it properly? Now you're running away. Yeah, those are the moments of yoga, not the morning. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to this that it's the real yoga happens in the samsara more than in the caves, because when you are put to test and when you use these tools that you have otherwise on the mat or wherever you, in the cave, wherever you have accumulated, if you are not able to apply that, then what is the use of that? And they actually give you, they prompt you, they constantly tell you where you are. It's a litmus test, and if you don't go through that, then what's the point? And there are ample examples in Puranas, and especially in even folk tales, talking about these great yogis who were not, sannyasis. They were simply just even in samsara, like giving the example of Sant Tukaram, or giving the example of Mirabai, or even very simple in Karnataka and Andhra area, Hemareddy Mallama. All these women and men who were in samsara, and they reached the highest pinnacle of yoga while they were in samsara itself. And one of the stories that I just want to quickly say this story, so that tells you that it is yoga is not just a shamanic or for shamanas or for sannyasis. It is this one lady who is serving her family and her in-laws and all, and this one great yogi who can see anything and burn it. He has so much power that if he sees a bird, it burns down. And he did that precisely because he was sitting and meditating, and a bird drops on his head, and he gets very mad and looks at the bird with anger, and the bird falls down dead. So he burnt down, and he comes to this lady's house, and he says Bhikshan Dehi once, twice, and she says, please wait, I'm helping my in-laws. And he gets mad third time, and he looks at her with anger, and she says, no, you cannot burn me down, I'm not that bird. And he goes, how do you know this? How do you know I did this just now? She says, no, I'm not any kind of yogi that you are. I just simply serve my my family and my in-laws here with love and devotion. That's it. So it is that bhakti that you can practice anytime, or that karma yoga that you can practice anytime. That doesn't need you to be in any kind of cave. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I just wanted to add, so going back to Sumitraji's question, and it's a very relevant question, because all around us, we see people who are in the mode of bhoga more than in the mode of yoga. And it reminds me that what Raghuji said, if you see the distribution of people, so you have the two extremes, and the number of people who are so passionate about serving the world, bringing excellence from within, and making this world a better place, is the tail end of that distribution. So the majority of the distribution are helping themselves in bhoga, artha, and so forth. And so it is a hallmark that we find ourselves a little different from the average. In other words, most of the people who have made great contributions to the world, initially they are labeled as a little bit eccentric. They're outliers. They're outliers. In fact, I was reading a book recently that examines this subject in great detail. So the name of the book itself is Outliers by the author Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about how people who make great contributions to humanity, initially people think of them as a crank. Oh, they are not in the same pursuit. They're not in the rat race. They're not a rat. That's why they're not in the rat race. So how we can be an agent of change? How can we do something that is aligned with dharma, aligned with values, so that we inspire people from being a rat to being somebody who can elevate themselves a quality of life, so no longer in the rat race. So I just wanted to mention that.
I don't see any other questions in the Q&A box. So let me ask our audience a question, actually 3 questions. So each of our faculty here teach courses at Hindu University of America. This first one, are you interested in enrolling in a yoga teacher training? That's going to be with Ashwini ji. Yoga Bharati has this partnered with HUA. They're not offering it in the summer, but in the fall. So if you're interested in a yoga teacher training, let us know. The second one, Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita. That is a course that Sriramji will be teaching in the summer coming up starting in July. So you can let us know if you're interested in that. And the third question is, are you interested in enrolling in the Yoga of the Mahabharata, which is a course Raghuji teaches at Hindu University of America. Now, each of our faculty teach many courses. Depending on the quarter, they may offer a different course. So just to let us know if you are interested in one in particular or not, it always helps us to follow up and connect you to the right, make the right follow-up. So please do fill that out. Let us know if you are really interested, or if you have questions, we'll follow up with you on our end as Hindu University of America. And this is amazing. This is what I think HUA is about, bringing different people, different experts to you through this platform, through online learning, through this webinar, making it accessible. Hopefully I had a great time. This was an amazing sharing of ideas and conversation for International Yoga Day. So please fill out that poll. Please enroll in a course. Support Hindu University of America in whatever way you can. This is our university. We're about to take a next greater step. You know, over these last 4 years since 2019, I think we've proved the concept. We've added faculty. We've got our learning management system. We've got new faculty coming in, and our existing faculty are iterating, adding new courses, figuring out what people want to enroll in, and getting better and better. So the recording of today's call will be forwarded. This webinar will be forwarded. Zoom user, if you want to put in your name and where you're zooming in from, I can give you a shout out. Right at the top of the hour, let's go around one time. How about each of you, not me, I already made my closing statement. Support HUA, join the courses, do what you can to help this institution grow and take the next step. And maybe each of our faculty can give a closing statement or thought. And if you want to keep on going, if you have a question that you want to go around, I think people will stick around to hear it. And Ram Gupta ji from Boston, glad to have you on. Yes, sir. So let's have this maybe last round of conversation from our faculty.
Namaste. I just wanted to say that I have been with HUA for ever since Kalyanji decided to take over and walked into, in fact, even before that, we at Yoga Bharati have been working with HUA even before Kalyanji joined, but after he joined, definitely, you know, it took a new avatar, and we have been with Yoga Bharati, and also personally myself and my husband Anil Surpur, who is who is one of the listeners here. We have supported and we have been with HUA, watching the growth and development, and I fully endorse, and I am at awe about all the work that HUA has been doing, and the great faculty pool, like you just witnessed, the faculty pool here. Guji and Sri Ramji, my big namastes to you. I've been constantly learning from HUA. I also signed up for the master's certification. I've audited a few courses. I have also taken a few more courses. Haven't had the time to just take up a complete full-fledged program. Want to someday, but yeah, that is my experience about HUA, and overall regarding the panel here today and the panelists, my big and Ankur, your leadership is, you know, nothing small in adding this beautiful, dynamic, vibrant atmosphere here on Zoom, which is very difficult to get. And so again, I always admire you, and when Ankur is on the panel, I'm okay to participate or listen in every way. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity, and for giving Yoga Bharati an opportunity to host some of our programs on HUA's panel, HUA's platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me also add to what Ashwini said. I learned a lot from the panelists and from the questions, and from you, Ankurji, from this press again, because there was wisdom-packed hour. And I'm also incredibly grateful for the work that HUA is doing. I make sure that in addition to the courses that I teach with the HUA, that every quarter I also enroll myself as a student, because we have so much amazing faculty that we learn from each other. primarily, I still see myself as a student in the path of yoga and Sanatana Dharma. And even when I offer courses, when I don the role of a teacher, I find that I am also learning. In fact, I'm learning so much from the students and the questions. So I'm very, very grateful for the work that HUA is doing. And thank you to Ankurji, thank you to Ashwiniji and Raghuji for the amazing wisdom.
It's always wonderful to be here, yeah. And this ability to join in through Zoom and get to interact is quite amazing. So I'm very enriched, and also thankfully HUA is growing, and it really needs to, it has a huge role to play. Yeah. So all the best, and we'll give you whatever support you need.
International Yoga Day webinar. Thank you so much, Danyal. My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
By the way, Ankur, 21st is Deshikachar's birthday, my teacher's birthday.
Oh, wow.
For me, it's more of my teacher's birthday than International Yoga Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.